You know, our whole world runs on technology. We've got phones, computers in our schools. We're more connected than we've ever been. But every single new gadget we get leaves something behind, electronic waste. So today we're going to dive into this often overlooked side effect of our digital lives, and we're going to see how a country like Uganda is tackling this massive global challenge head-on.
Okay, so I want you to just think about something for a second. Imagine a school, maybe like the one you went to, gets a brand new computer lab. That's awesome for the students, right? But what about all the old stuff? The dozens of monitors, the keyboards, the old towers they replaced? Where does all that go? It's a question we almost never ask.
Well, the answer, way too often, looks exactly like this. This is a real scenario drawn from a case study at Kampala Modern Secondary School, and it's happening all over the world. Piles of old electronics just become these informal scrapyards. People, sometimes even kids, will burn the plastic off of wires just to get a tiny bit of copper, and that releases all these toxic fumes. Old batteries start to corrode and leak, literally poisoning the ground beneath them. This, right here, is where the story of e-waste really begins.
All right, so what exactly is e-waste? Let's break it down. It's basically any electronic product that's hit the end of its useful life. And it's not just the big stuff like computers and phones. We're talking about the chargers, the cables, the batteries, the printers. You know, pretty much anything with a plug or a circuit board.
But here's the thing. This is so much more than just clutter or some ugly pile of junk behind a school. The impact is way more serious. It's actually a two-sided threat to both people and the planet.
You see, when this stuff isn't handled the right way, it's like it wages a war on two different fronts. On one side, it's doing direct harm to human health. And on the other, it's causing some really severe damage to the environment. And of course, these two things are totally interconnected.
So what's actually in these gadgets that's so dangerous? Well, our electronics are packed with heavy metals and chemicals. Things like lead, mercury, and cadmium. They're totally fine when they're sealed inside the device, but they're incredibly toxic when they get out. So when these devices get smashed or burned, that whole toxic cocktail just leaches out into our air, our soil, and our water. And that can lead to poisoning, breathing problems, and all sorts of long-term health issues.
Okay, so that's the problem, and yeah, it's a pretty serious one. But the good news is, there are solutions. So let's flip the script and move away from the dangers and start looking at the strategies that are actually being used to manage this challenge.
And right at the heart of Uganda's national policy is this really simple but super powerful idea, the 4 Rs. And this is not just some catchy slogan, it's a real hierarchy of actions, and it's designed to tackle the problem right at the source. And check this out, the order here is absolutely crucial. The first, and the best, thing you can do is reduce, just buy less stuff. The second is to reuse. If it still works, give it a second life. Third, repair. A cracked screen shouldn't mean you throw the whole phone away. It's only after you've gone through all of those that you get to the final step, recycle. So recycling is the last resort, not the first. Why? Well, it's because reducing, reusing, and repairing save way more energy and resources than breaking a product down into its raw materials.
So when we get to that last step, recycling, what are we actually talking about? It's not just tossing something in a bin. It's a formal industrial process. It's all about systematically collecting these devices, breaking them down safely, and recovering all the valuable materials inside so they can be used to make new products. And yeah, it's a whole journey. It's way more structured than you might think. It starts with collection, then transport. Once it gets to a facility, everything is sorted and inspected. Then it's dismantled. After that comes the heavy industrial part, shredding and processing, where they use high-tech methods to recover materials like gold and copper. And the final step, and this is super important, is making sure any of those hazardous materials are separated and disposed of safely.
So, who's in charge of all this? Who actually makes this whole system work? A complex system like this needs a lot of coordination and oversight. So let's take a look at the key players who are responsible for e-waste management in Uganda.
Well, sitting at the top of the pyramid is the National Environment Management Authority, or NEMA. This is the main government agency that's in charge of regulating and supervising all environmental matters in the country. And that now includes this huge, growing challenge of e-waste.
And NEMA's role is huge. They're not just sitting in an office writing rules. They're out on the ground enforcing them. They're the ones inspecting disposal sites, and they give out licenses to legitimate recycling companies to make sure they're operating safely. They also run public education campaigns, and they work with local governments to build a system that works across the entire country. But here's the real takeaway, and it's a big one. NEMA can't do this alone, not even close. As you can see here, managing e-waste is a massive team effort. You've got manufacturers who are encouraged to design greener products and create take-back programs. You've got schools who are responsible for teaching about proper disposal. And then it all comes down to us, the community, to make sure we're getting rid of our old gadgets responsibly.
And that idea, that shared responsibility, that's really the cornerstone of Uganda's entire strategy. It's about building a system where absolutely everyone understands the role they have to play in finding a solution.
And listen, this isn't just a bunch of nice ideas on paper. Uganda has been building up to this for over a decade. It started with their first national policy way back in 2012. Then they released detailed guidelines in 2016, and more recently, they've updated their core environmental laws in 2019 and 2020 to really strengthen enforcement and clarify who's responsible for what. This shows a serious, long-term commitment.
You know, this quote from the source material just nails it. This isn't a problem for the government to fix by itself or for any one of us to solve on our own. It's a collective responsibility. It really does take every single stakeholder, from the company that makes the phone to the person who uses it, to work together to get this right.
So, that leaves us with one last question, and this one is for you. We all have one, right? That drawer full of old phones, tangled chargers, and forgotten gadgets. Our own little personal digital graveyard. After everything we've talked about, the risks and the solutions, what are you going to do with it? What's its next chapter?